Close your eyes and take a slow breath. Tonight, let's drift through the vast, gentle tapestry of human belief, from ancient temples to silent monasteries, sacred texts to whispered prayers. Across continents and centuries, people have searched for meaning, comfort, and connection with the universe, with each other, and with something beyond. In this quiet journey, we'll explore the world's major religions and spiritual traditions, softly unfolding their stories, symbols, and prayers. And wisdom. No debate, no urgency, just peaceful understanding. Let your mind float through time and across cultures as we begin our sleep-soaked exploration of faith and philosophy. Christianity. Christianity is the world's largest religion, with over 2 billion followers worldwide. At its core, Christianity centers on the belief that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and the Savior of humanity. Christians believe that Jesus died on the cross to save people from their sins and rose from the dead 3 days later, offering eternal life to all who believe in him. The Christian holy book is the Bible, which consists of two main parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament contains Hebrew scriptures, while the New Testament focuses on the life and teachings of Jesus and the early Christian church. Christians gather in churches for worship services, typically on Sundays, where they pray, sing hymns, and listen to sermons based on biblical teachings. Prayer plays a central role in Christian life, serving as direct communication with God. Christians believe in the concept of salvation through faith in Jesus Christ, meaning that accepting Jesus as their personal Savior leads to forgiveness of sins and eternal life in heaven. The religion emphasizes love, compassion, forgiveness, and service to others as fundamental values. Christianity has many denominations, including Catholicism, Protestantism, and Eastern Orthodoxy, each with slightly different practices and interpretations of Scripture. Major Christian holidays include Christmas, celebrating Jesus' birth, and Easter, commemorating his resurrection. The religion has profoundly influenced art, literature, law, and culture throughout Western civilization, and continues to be a driving force for charitable work and social justice movements worldwide. Islam. Islam, meaning submission to Allah, is the world's second largest religion with approximately 1.8 billion followers called Muslims. Muslims believe in one God, Allah, and accept Muhammad as his final prophet and messenger. The religion teaches that Muhammad received divine revelations from Allah through the angel Gabriel, which were compiled into the Quran, Islam's holy book. The Quran, written in Arabic, is considered the direct word of Allah and serves as the ultimate guide for Muslim life. Muslims believe it contains guidance for all aspects of human existence, from personal conduct to social justice. The 5 pillars of Islam form the foundation of Muslim practice. These include the Shahada, or Declaration of Faith, Salah, the 5 daily prayers, Zakat, charitable giving, Psalm, fasting during the holy month of Ramadan, and Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca that every able Muslim should complete at least once. Daily prayer, called Salah, is performed 5 times throughout the day while facing Mecca, Islam's holiest city. These prayers create a rhythm of worship and remembrance of Allah that structures the Muslim day. Friday congregational prayers at the mosque bring communities together for worship and spiritual guidance. Islam emphasizes social justice, equality, and compassion for the less fortunate. The religion teaches that all humans are equal before Allah, regardless of race or social status. Islamic law, called Sharia, provides guidance for personal conduct and community governance. Major Islamic holidays include Eid al-Fitr, celebrating the end of Ramadan, and Eid al-Adha, commemorating Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son for God. Hinduism. Hinduism is one of the world's oldest religions, with roots stretching back over 4,000 years. Unlike many religions, Hinduism has no single founder, central authority, or universally accepted set of beliefs. Instead, it encompasses a rich tapestry of traditions, practices, and philosophies that have evolved over millennia in the Indian subcontinent. Central to Hindu belief is the concept of dharma, which refers to righteous living and moral duty according to one's position in life. Hindus believe in karma, the law of cause and effect that governs moral actions and their consequences across lifetimes. This connects to the belief in reincarnation, where souls are reborn into new bodies after death, with the quality of rebirth determined by one's karma from previous lives. Hinduism embraces multiple deities, with different traditions emphasizing various gods and goddesses. Major deities include Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer and transformer. Popular incarnations of Vishnu include Krishna and Rama, whose stories are told in epic texts like the Mahabharata and Ramayana. Hindu practices vary widely, but often include prayer, meditation, yoga, and pilgrimage to sacred sites. The religion recognizes four main life goals: dharma or righteous living, artha or material prosperity, kama or pleasure and emotional fulfillment, and moksha or liberation from the cycle of rebirth. Hindu festivals like Diwali, the Festival of Lights, and Holi, the Festival of Colors, celebrate various aspects of divine presence and seasonal changes. Sacred texts include the Vedas, ancient hymns and rituals, the Upanishads, philosophical treatises, and epic poems that contain moral and spiritual guidance. Hinduism's diversity allows for many paths to spiritual realization, making it remarkably inclusive and adaptable to different temperaments and circumstances. Buddhism. Buddhism emerged in the 5th century BCE through the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama, who became known as the Buddha, meaning the awakened one. Born a prince in what is now Nepal, Siddhartha left his privileged life to seek understanding of human suffering and the path to liberation from it. The foundation of Buddhism rests on the Four Noble Truths. First, life contains suffering, called dukkha, which includes obvious pain as well as the subtle dissatisfaction that comes from life's impermanent nature. Second, this suffering arises from attachment and craving for things to be different than they are. Third, suffering can end by letting go of these attachments. Fourth, there is a path to end suffering, known as the Noble Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path provides practical guidance for ethical living and mental development. It includes right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. These elements work together to develop wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. Meditation is central to Buddhist practice, helping practitioners develop mindfulness and insight into the nature of reality. Buddhists believe in rebirth, but unlike Hinduism, they don't believe in a permanent soul that transmigrates. Instead, consciousness continues after death, influenced by one's karma or intentional actions. The ultimate goal in Buddhism is achieving nirvana, a state of liberation from suffering and the cycle of rebirth. Different Buddhist traditions have developed various approaches to this goal. Theravada Buddhism, found mainly in Southeast Asia, emphasizes individual meditation and following the Buddha's original teachings. Mahayana Buddhism, prevalent in East Asia, includes the ideal of the bodhisattva, someone who delays their own enlightenment to help others achieve liberation. Buddhist communities often center around monasteries where monks and nuns dedicate their lives to practice and teaching. However, lay practitioners also play important roles, supporting monastic communities and practicing Buddhist principles in daily life. Judaism. Judaism is one of the world's oldest monotheistic religions. With a history spanning nearly 4,000 years, Jews believe in one indivisible God who created and governs the universe. Central to Jewish faith is the concept of covenant, a special relationship between God and the Jewish people that began with Abraham and was renewed with Moses at Mount Sinai. The Torah, consisting of the 5 books of Moses, forms the foundation of Jewish religious law and practice. Along with the Nevi'im, or prophets, and Ketuvim, or writings, it comprises the Hebrew Bible, or Tanakh. Jewish tradition also includes the Talmud, a vast collection of rabbinical discussions and interpretations of the Torah that provides guidance for Jewish law and practice. Jewish identity encompasses both religious and ethnic elements, creating a unique cultural identity that has persisted despite centuries of persecution and diaspora. Jews may be religious or secular, while still maintaining strong cultural connections to Jewish traditions, holidays, and values. Religious Jewish life revolves around observing the Sabbath, a weekly day of rest and spiritual renewal from Friday evening to Saturday evening. During this time, work ceases, families gather for special meals, and communities come together for prayer and Torah study. Jewish holidays mark significant historical and agricultural events, including Passover, which commemorates the Exodus from Egypt, Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, and Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Synagogues serve as centers for prayer, study, and community gathering. Jewish prayer often involves Hebrew language and follows traditions established over millennia. Important life cycle events include circumcision for boys, bar and bat mitzvah ceremonies, marking religious maturity, Jewish weddings under a kuppah or wedding canopy, and specific mourning practices. Judaism has profoundly influenced Western civilization through its ethical monotheism and emphasis on justice, education, and social responsibility. The Jewish concept of tikkun olam, or repairing the world, motivates many Jews to work for social justice and humanitarian causes. Despite representing less than 1% of the world's population, Jewish contributions to philosophy, science, arts, and human rights have been remarkable and enduring. Sikhism, pronounced Sikhism. Sikhism emerged in the 15th century Punjab region, founded by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, who lived from 1469 to 1539. This monotheistic faith represents one of the world's youngest major religions, emphasizing the worship of one formless God, known as Waheguru, meaning Wonderful Lord. The word Sikh derives from the Sanskrit term Shishya, meaning disciple or student. Sikhs follow the teachings of 10 successive gurus, beginning with Guru Nanak and concluding with Guru Gobind Singh, who declared the Holy Scripture, the Guru Granth Sahib, as the eternal Guru. Central to Sikh philosophy are 3 fundamental principles. First, Nam Japna means remembering God through meditation and prayer. Second, Kirat Karni emphasizes earning an honest living through hard work and integrity. Third, Vand Shakna involves sharing one's earnings with those in need and contributing to community welfare. The religion strongly advocates for equality among all human beings, regardless of caste, creed, gender, or social status. This revolutionary concept challenged the rigid social hierarchies of medieval India. Sikh gurus actively promoted women's rights, allowing them to participate fully in religious ceremonies and community leadership. The 5Ks, known as Panchkakar, represent the external symbols worn by initiated Sikhs called Khalsa. These include Kesh, uncut hair; Kara, steel bracelet; Kanga, wooden comb; Kachera, cotton undergarments; and Kirban, ceremonial sword. Each symbol carries deep spiritual significance, representing commitment to the faith and readiness to serve others. Service, or seva, forms the cornerstone of Sikh practice. Every Gurdwara, or Sikh temple, operates a community kitchen called langar, serving free meals to all visitors regardless of background. This tradition embodies the principle of equality and selfless service that defines Sikhism. The religion emphasizes living as a householder while maintaining spiritual devotion, rejecting asceticism in favor of engaged spirituality. Sikhs believe in the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, with liberation achieved through devotion, service, and righteous living. Today, approximately 30 million Sikhs worldwide continue these traditions, making significant contributions to their communities while maintaining their distinct identity and values. Taoism or Taoism, pronounced Taoism or Taoism. Taoism, also romanized as Taoism, represents one of China's three major philosophical and religious traditions, alongside Confucianism and Buddhism. The term Tao means the way, referring to the fundamental principle underlying all existence, traditionally attributed to Laozi or Lao Tzu, a legendary figure possibly living in the 6th century BCE. Taoism's foundational text is the Tao Te Ching, also known as the Tao Te Ching. His profound work consists of 81 brief chapters exploring the nature of reality, virtue, and harmonious living. The Tao itself remains ineffable and beyond human comprehension. The opening lines of the Tao Te Ching state, "The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao," emphasizing its transcendent nature. This ultimate reality gives birth to all things while remaining formless and eternal. Central to Taoist philosophy is Wu Wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action. This doesn't mean passivity, but rather acting in accordance with natural flow and timing, like water flowing around obstacles rather than forcing through them. Wu Wei represents the art of accomplishing goals through minimal interference with natural processes. Taoists embrace the concept of yin and yang, complementary opposites that create dynamic balance in the universe. Light and dark, masculine and feminine, active and passive, all represent interconnected aspects of reality rather than conflicting forces. This philosophy encourages accepting life's natural rhythms and contradictions. The tradition emphasizes simplicity, spontaneity, and returning to one's original nature. Taoists often use metaphors from nature, particularly water, which overcomes hardness through persistence and flexibility. Mountains may appear strong, but water eventually carves through stone. Taoist practices include meditation, breathing exercises, Tai Chi, and Qigong, all designed to cultivate harmony between individual consciousness and the cosmic Tao. These practices aim to develop longevity, inner peace, and spiritual insight. Religious Taoism developed elaborate pantheons of deities, immortals, and spiritual practices, while philosophical Taoism remains focused on ethical living and understanding natural principles. Both streams share common roots in observing nature's patterns and seeking harmony with universal principles. Modern practitioners find Taoist wisdom particularly relevant for managing stress, finding work-life balance, and approaching challenges with flexibility rather than force. The tradition's emphasis on environmental harmony resonates strongly with contemporary ecological concerns. Confucianism, pronounced Confucianism. Confucianism emerged from the teachings of Kongfu, known in the West as Confucius, who lived from 551 to 479 BCE during China's spring and autumn period. Rather than a religion in the traditional sense, Confucianism represents a comprehensive ethical and philosophical system focused on creating harmonious society through proper relationships and moral cultivation. The foundational Confucian texts include the Analects, containing Confucius's sayings and conversations with disciples, along with classical works like the Book of Changes, I Ching, Book of Songs, and Book of Rites. These texts emphasize moral development, social harmony, and proper governance. Central to Confucian thought is Ren, often translated as benevolence, humaneness, or perfect virtue. Ren encompasses compassion, kindness, and concern for others' welfare. Confucius taught that cultivating Ren requires constant self-reflection and improvement, treating others with dignity and respect. The concept of Li refers to proper conduct, rituals, and social etiquette that maintain societal order. These aren't empty formalities, but meaningful expressions of respect and consideration for others. Li governs everything from family interactions to state ceremonies, creating predictable frameworks for human relationships. Confucianism emphasizes 5 fundamental relationships: ruler and subject, parent and child, husband and wife, elder and younger, and friend and friend. Each relationship involves mutual obligations and responsibilities, with the superior party bearing greater moral responsibility for the relationship's success. Filial piety, or shao, represents devotion and respect toward parents and ancestors. This cornerstone virtue extends beyond mere obedience to encompass caring for parents in old age, honoring their memory after death, and bringing honor to the family name through virtuous conduct. Education holds paramount importance in Confucian thought. Confucius believed that anyone, regardless of social background, could achieve moral excellence through learning and self-cultivation. This revolutionary idea promoted meritocracy over hereditary privilege, influencing Chinese civil service examinations for over a millennium. The tradition emphasizes Junzi, the ideal person or gentleman, who embodies moral excellence, cultural refinement, and social responsibility. The Junzi leads by moral example rather than force, inspiring others through virtuous conduct. Confucian governance theory promotes benevolent leadership, where rulers earn legitimacy through moral character and concern for subjects' welfare. Poor governance loses the mandate of heaven, justifying resistance or revolution. Modern Confucianism continues influencing East Asian cultures, emphasizing education, family values, social harmony, and ethical leadership. Many contemporary societies draw upon Confucian principles while adapting them to modern democratic and economic contexts. Shinto, pronounced Shinto, meaning way of the gods or way of the spirits, represents Japan's indigenous spiritual tradition, deeply woven into the country's cultural fabric for over 2 millennia. Unlike religions with founding figures or written scriptures, Shinto evolved organically from ancient Japanese beliefs about the spiritual forces inhabiting the natural world. Central to Shinto are kami, spiritual beings or forces that inhabit natural phenomena, ancestral spirits, and deified historical figures. Kami aren't gods in the Western sense, but rather sacred presences deserving respect and reverence. They may reside in mountains, rivers, trees, rocks, or other natural features, making the entire landscape potentially sacred. The most significant kami include Amaterasu Omikami, the sun goddess considered the ancestor of Japan's imperial family, and Inari, the rice and prosperity deity worshipped at thousands of shrines nationwide. Local communities often venerate regional kami associated with specific geographical features or historical events. Shinto practice centers around maintaining harmony between humans, kami, and nature through ritual purification, offerings, and festivals. Misogi, or purification rituals, remove spiritual pollution, or kegare, that accumulates through contact with death, illness, or moral transgressions. These purifications often involve water, salt, or ritualized actions. Shrines, or jinja, serve as dwelling places for kami and focal points for community worship. Characterized by distinctive torii gates marking sacred space, shrines range from simple roadside structures to elaborate complexes like Ise Grand Shrine, rebuilt every 20 years to maintain spiritual purity. Shinto festivals, called matsuri, celebrate seasonal changes, agricultural cycles, and local traditions. These joyous occasions feature music, dancing, food, and portable shrines, called makoshi, carried through neighborhoods to spread blessings. Major festivals, like New Year celebrations, draw millions of participants. The tradition emphasizes ritual purity, natural beauty, and gratitude for nature's gifts. Practitioners offer rice, sake, salt, and other natural products to kami, expressing appreciation for life's blessings and seeking continued protection and prosperity. Shinto seamlessly integrates with daily Japanese life, marking important transitions like birth, coming of age, marriage, and business ventures. Most Japanese participate in Shinto rituals regardless of other religious affiliations, viewing these practices as cultural expressions rather than exclusive religious commitments. The tradition strongly influences Japanese aesthetics, emphasizing simplicity, natural materials, and harmony with environmental rhythms. This sensibility appears in architecture, garden design, martial arts, and tea ceremony, reflecting Shinto's profound cultural impact. During the Meiji period, 1868 to 1912, state Shinto became closely associated with emperor worship and nationalism. After World War II, Shinto separated from government control, returning to its roots as a collection of local traditions and shrine-based practices focused on community welfare and spiritual harmony. Zen Buddhism, pronounced Zen Buddhism, Zen Buddhism represents a distinctive school within Mahayana Buddhism that emphasizes direct experiential realization of Buddha nature through meditation practice. The word Zen derives from the Sanskrit dhyana, meaning meditation, transmitted through Chinese Chan before reaching Japan. According to tradition, Zen originated when Buddha Shakyamuni silently held up a flower before his assembled disciples. Only Mahakashyapa smiled, understanding the wordless transmission of enlightened awareness. This story illustrates Zen's emphasis on direct pointing to truth beyond conceptual understanding. The historical development of Zen began with Bodhidharma, an Indian monk who traveled to China in the 6th century, establishing the Chan tradition. Chinese masters like Huineng, the 6th patriarch, developed distinctive teaching methods emphasizing sudden enlightenment over gradual cultivation. Japanese monks later brought these teachings to Japan, where they flourished as Zen. Two major Zen schools dominate Japanese Buddhism. Rinzai Zen, introduced by Eisai in the 12th century, emphasizes intensive meditation combined with koan study. Koans are paradoxical anecdotes or questions designed to exhaust rational thinking and provoke direct insight. Famous koans include What is the sound of one hand clapping? And what was your original face before your parents were born? Soto Zen, established by Dogen in the 13th century, practices shikantaza, or just sitting meditation. This approach emphasizes sustained attention to present moment awareness without seeking specific experiences or achievements. Practitioners simply sit in meditation, allowing thoughts and sensations to arise and pass naturally. Central to all Zen traditions is Zazen, seated meditation practice. Practitioners typically sit cross-legged on cushions, facing a wall, maintaining upright posture while observing breath and mental activity without attachment. This practice develops concentration, mindfulness, and insight into the nature of consciousness. Zen teaching emphasizes the Buddha nature inherent in all beings, the potential for awakening that transcends intellectual understanding. Enlightenment isn't something to be attained from outside, but rather the recognition of one's original nature, already perfect and complete. The tradition values direct transmission from teacher to student through personal relationship and example, rather than relying solely on scriptural study. Zen masters use various skillful means, including physical gestures, shouts, questions, and even apparent contradictions to shake students from conceptual fixation. Zen profoundly influenced Japanese culture, inspiring distinctive art forms like ink painting, poetry, flower arrangement, tea ceremony, and martial arts. These activities become opportunities for meditative practice, expressing Zen principles through everyday activities. The famous phrase, "Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water," captures Zen's integration of spiritual realization with ordinary life. Awakening doesn't require withdrawing from daily activities, but rather engaging them with complete presence and awareness. Modern Zen appeals to practitioners seeking direct spiritual experience beyond religious doctrine or belief systems. Its emphasis on meditation, present moment awareness, and integration of practice with daily life resonates with contemporary seekers exploring mindfulness and contemplative practices. Jainism, the path of nonviolence and spiritual purity. Jainism represents one of the world's oldest religions, founded in the 6th century BCE by Mahavira. Though Jains trace their traditions back to the first Tirthankara, Rishabhanatha. This ancient Indian religion centers on three fundamental principles that guide every aspect of a practitioner's life. The cornerstone of Jainism is ahimsa, or nonviolence, which extends far beyond simply avoiding physical harm to others. Jains believe that all living beings possess souls, from humans and animals to plants and even microscopic organisms. This belief leads to extraordinary measures to avoid causing harm. Jain monks and nuns sweep the ground before walking to avoid stepping on insects, wear masks to prevent accidentally inhaling tiny creatures, and strain water before drinking it. Many Jains follow strict vegetarian diets and avoid foods like potatoes and onions, believing that harvesting root vegetables causes unnecessary harm to plant life. The second pillar is karma, but Jainism's understanding of karma differs significantly from other Indian religions. Jains view karma as a physical substance that attaches to the soul through actions, thoughts, and intentions. Every deed, whether good or bad, creates karmic particles that bind to the soul, affecting future rebirths and experiences. The goal is not to accumulate good karma, but to stop the influx of all karma entirely. This process, called nirjara, involves burning off existing karmic particles through spiritual practices while preventing new ones from attaching. Spiritual purity, the third fundamental principle, encompasses the ultimate goal of Jainism, achieving moksha, or liberation from the cycle of birth and death. This liberation occurs when the soul becomes completely pure, free from all karmic bondage. The path to this purity involves following the 5 main vows for monks and nuns, or the 5 limited vows for lay people. These include nonviolence, truthfulness, not stealing, celibacy or chastity, and non-attachment to material possessions. Jain cosmology presents a universe without beginning or end, governed by natural laws rather than divine intervention. The universe consists of countless souls in various states of spiritual development, cycling through different forms of life based on their karmic burden. Time moves in endless cycles, with periods of progress and decline, alternating throughout eternity. The religion emphasizes personal responsibility for one's spiritual journey. There is no supreme deity who grants salvation. Instead, each individual must work toward their own liberation through right belief, right knowledge, and right conduct. This threefold path, known as the 3 jewels of Jainism, provides the framework for spiritual development. Jain practices include regular fasting, meditation, and pilgrimage to sacred sites. The religion recognizes 24 Tirthankaras, or spiritual teachers, who have achieved liberation and shown others the path. Mahavira, the 24th and most recent Tirthankara, refined and spread Jain teachings throughout India. Modern Jainism continues to emphasize these ancient principles while adapting to contemporary life. Jain communities are known for their charitable work, particularly in education and healthcare, viewing such service as a way to practice non-attachment while helping others. The religion's emphasis on environmental protection and sustainable living has gained new relevance in discussions about climate change and ecological responsibility. Number 2. Falun Gong, Chinese spiritual discipline of mind and body. Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, emerged in China in 1992 when Li Hongzhi began teaching this spiritual discipline publicly. Combining elements of traditional Chinese Qigong exercises with Buddhist and Taoist philosophy, Falun Gong quickly gained millions of practitioners before facing persecution from the Chinese government in 1999. The practice centers on the cultivation of 3 fundamental principles: truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. These principles, known in Chinese as Zhen, Shan, and Ren, serve as both moral guidelines and spiritual goals. Practitioners believe that by embodying these qualities in daily life, they can elevate their moral character and spiritual level. Truthfulness involves being honest in speech and action, seeking truth in all aspects of life, and maintaining sincerity in relationships with others. This principle extends to self-reflection and the honest assessment of one's own thoughts and motivations. Practitioners are encouraged to speak truthfully, even when it might be inconvenient or difficult. Compassion encompasses kindness, empathy, and genuine care for all living beings. This includes treating others with patience and understanding, helping those in need, and maintaining a benevolent attitude, even toward those who may cause harm. The cultivation of compassion is seen as essential for spiritual progress. Forbearance refers to tolerance, endurance, and the ability to maintain inner peace despite external challenges. This includes patience in the face of conflict, the ability to endure hardship without complaint, and maintaining emotional stability during difficult circumstances. The physical practice of Falun Gong consists of 5 sets of exercises, including 4 standing exercises and 1 sitting meditation. These exercises are designed to purify the body, calm the mind, and facilitate the circulation of energy, or qi, throughout the body. The movements are gentle and accessible to people of various ages and physical abilities. Central to Falun Gong cosmology is the concept of the fallen, or law wheel, an intelligent rotating entity that practitioners believe is installed in their abdomen through practice. This fallen is said to rotate continuously, correcting abnormal conditions in the body and helping practitioners achieve better health and spiritual development. The practice emphasizes moral elevation alongside physical exercises. Practitioners study Li Hongzhi's teachings, primarily contained in the book Zhuan Falun, which discusses spiritual cultivation, the nature of the universe, and the path to enlightenment. The text blends scientific concepts with spiritual philosophy, discussing multiple dimensions, the structure of matter, and the evolution of human consciousness. Falun Gong practitioners believe in the existence of karma and reincarnation, similar to Buddhist traditions. However, they also incorporate unique concepts such as the idea that the universe follows the fundamental characteristic of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance at all levels, from the microscopic to the cosmic. The practice gained widespread popularity in China during the 1990s, with government estimates suggesting 70 to 100 million practitioners by 1999. However, the Chinese government banned Falun Gong in July 1999, citing concerns about its influence and organizational structure. This led to ongoing persecution of practitioners within China and the establishment of Falun Gong communities worldwide. Today, Falun Gong is practiced freely in over 100 countries outside of China. Practitioners often gather in parks for group exercises and participate in cultural events to raise awareness about the persecution in China. The practice continues to emphasize personal cultivation, moral improvement, and the belief that following universal principles can lead to spiritual enlightenment and improved physical health. 3. Ancient Egyptian religion. The eternal journey of life and death. Ancient Egyptian religion dominated the Nile Valley for over 3,000 years, creating one of history's most enduring and complex spiritual systems. This polytheistic faith centered on the relationship between the living, the dead, and the gods, with elaborate rituals and beliefs designed to ensure successful passage into the afterlife. The Egyptian pantheon included hundreds of deities, each governing different aspects of life and death. Ra, the sun god, held supreme importance as the creator deity who traveled across the sky each day in his solar bark and through the underworld each night. Egyptians believed Ra's daily journey represented the eternal cycle of death and rebirth that governed all existence. Osiris ruled the underworld and judged the dead, becoming central to Egyptian concepts of afterlife and resurrection. According to mythology, Osiris was murdered by his brother Set, dismembered, and then reassembled and brought back to life by his wife Isis. This myth became the foundation for Egyptian beliefs about death and resurrection, offering hope that proper preparation could ensure eternal life. Isis represented motherhood, magic, and healing, serving as protector of the dead and guardian of children. Her worship spread throughout the Mediterranean world, making her one of the most widely venerated deities of the ancient world. Thoth governed wisdom, writing, and judgment, often depicted recording the deeds of the dead during their trial in the afterlife. The concept of Ma'at, both a goddess and a principle, represented truth, justice, and cosmic order. Egyptians believed the universe required constant maintenance of Ma'at to prevent chaos from overwhelming creation. Pharaohs ruled as divine representatives responsible for maintaining Ma'at throughout their kingdom. Egyptian afterlife beliefs centered on the journey through the Duat, or underworld, where the deceased faced numerous challenges before reaching the Hall of Two Truths. There, Osiris presided over the weighing of the heart ceremony, where the deceased's heart was weighed against the feather of Ma'at. A heart lighter than the feather indicated a life lived in accordance with Ma'at, allowing the soul to enter the afterlife. A heavier heart was devoured by Ammit, a fearsome creature that ended the soul's existence. Mummification represented the most distinctive aspect of Egyptian religious practice. This elaborate process preserved the physical body for the afterlife, based on the belief that the soul required an intact body to survive death. The process could take 70 days and involved removing organs, treating the body with natron salt, and wrapping it in linen bandages inscribed with protective spells. The Book of the Dead, actually a collection of spells and instructions, guided the deceased through the afterlife journey. These texts, written on papyrus and placed in tombs, provided magical protection and knowledge necessary for navigating the underworld's dangers and challenges. Egyptian temples served as houses for the gods, where priests performed daily rituals to maintain cosmic order. These ceremonies included washing, clothing, and feeding statues of deities, believed to contain the actual presence of the gods. Temple complexes, like Karnak and Luxor, became centers of learning, administration, and economic activity. The pharaoh occupied a unique position as both human ruler and divine being, considered the living embodiment of Horus and destined to become Osiris after death. This divine kingship justified absolute rule and made the pharaoh responsible for maintaining Ma'at throughout Egypt. Seasonal festivals celebrated various deities and cosmic events, particularly the annual flooding of the Nile, which Egyptians attributed to the tears of Isis, mourning Osiris. These celebrations reinforced community bonds and religious devotion while marking important agricultural and astronomical cycles. Egyptian religious art and architecture reflected beliefs about eternity and divine power. Pyramids, temples, and tomb paintings were designed to last forever, serving both earthly and spiritual purposes. Hieroglyphic writing itself was considered sacred, with each symbol carrying magical power. The religion gradually declined with the rise of Christianity and Islam, but its influence persisted in art, architecture, and spiritual concepts throughout the ancient Mediterranean world and continues to fascinate people today. 4. Greek and Roman mythology, divine reflections of human nature. Greek and Roman mythology created one of Western civilization's most influential religious and cultural systems, featuring a complex pantheon of gods and goddesses who embodied both cosmic forces and human characteristics. These deities ruled from Mount Olympus while actively involving themselves in mortal affairs, creating stories that explored fundamental questions about fate, justice, love, and the human condition. Zeus, king of the gods, controlled the sky and weather while maintaining order among the divine family. Known for his power and numerous romantic conquests, Zeus represented both supreme authority and the complexities of leadership. His Roman counterpart Jupiter held similar attributes, but emphasized more strongly the aspects of law and governance that Romans valued. Hera, Zeus's wife and queen of the gods, presided over marriage and family life, though her mythological stories often focused on her jealousy and revenge against Zeus's many lovers and illegitimate children. This divine marriage reflected ancient Greek and Roman understanding of the tensions between idealized institutions and human nature. Poseidon ruled the seas and earthquakes, representing the unpredictable and dangerous forces of nature that ancient maritime civilizations constantly faced. His Roman equivalent Neptune carried similar attributes, but was more closely associated with horses and horsemanship, reflecting Roman military culture. Athena embodied wisdom, strategic warfare, and craftsmanship, born fully grown from Zeus's head. As patron goddess of Athens, she represented the intellectual and cultural achievements that Greeks valued most highly. Romans worshipped her as Minerva, emphasizing her aspects of wisdom and useful arts. Apollo governed music, poetry, prophecy, and healing, representing the harmonious and civilized aspects of human culture. His oracle at Delphi served as Greece's most important religious site, where pilgrims sought divine guidance on important decisions. Romans adopted Apollo directly, without changing his name, recognizing his importance in their own cultural development. Artemis, Apollo's twin sister, controlled the hunt and wild animals, representing untamed nature and female independence. Her Roman counterpart Diana maintained similar attributes while taking on additional roles related to the moon and childbirth. Aphrodite personified love and beauty, emerging from sea foam in one of mythology's most famous origin stories. Her Roman version Venus became particularly important as the supposed ancestor of the Julian family, linking divine favor to political power. Ares represented the brutal and chaotic aspects of warfare, contrasting with Athena's strategic approach to conflict. Romans transformed him into Mars, their most important deity after Jupiter, emphasizing his role as father of Romulus and protector of Roman military success. Hephaestus, the divine craftsman, worked in volcanic forges, creating weapons and tools for gods and heroes. His Roman counterpart Vulcan maintained similar functions while becoming more closely associated with the destructive power of volcanoes. Hermes served as messenger of the gods and guide of souls to the underworld, also governing trade, thieves, and communication. Romans worshipped him as Mercury, emphasizing his commercial aspects that suited their merchant culture. Demeter controlled agriculture and the harvest, with her grief over her daughter Persephone's abduction explaining the changing seasons. Romans honored her as Ceres, making her worship central to their grain supply and agricultural prosperity. These mythological systems served multiple functions in ancient society. They provided explanations for natural phenomena, established moral and social guidelines, and offered frameworks for understanding human psychology and behavior. The gods' flawed personalities made them relatable, while their divine power inspired both reverence and caution. Greek and Roman religious practices included elaborate festivals, sacrificial ceremonies, and mystery cults that promised spiritual transformation. The Olympic Games began as religious festivals honoring Zeus, while Roman triumph ceremonies celebrated military victories as divine favor. Philosophy gradually transformed these mythological beliefs, with thinkers like Plato interpreting myths as allegories for deeper truths rather than literal historical accounts. This philosophical approach influenced later Christian and Islamic theology, creating lasting intellectual traditions. The mythology's influence extended far beyond ancient times, inspiring Renaissance art, Enlightenment literature, and modern psychology. Concepts like the Oedipal complex, narcissism, and hubris derive directly from Greek mythological stories, while artistic and literary traditions continue drawing inspiration from these ancient tales. 5. Norse mythology, a world of fate, honor, and heroic destiny. Norse mythology emerged from the Scandinavian and Germanic peoples, creating a complex worldview centered on fate, honor, and the inevitable destruction and renewal of the world. This mythology profoundly influenced medieval European culture and continues to captivate modern audiences through literature, film, and popular culture. The Norse cosmos consisted of 9 worlds connected by Yggdrasil, the world tree, an enormous ash tree that served as the axis of all existence. Asgard housed the Aesir gods, while Midgard contained the human realm, connected to Asgard by the Rainbow Bridge Bifrost. Other worlds included Alfheim for the Light Elves, Vanaheim for the Vanir gods, Jotunheim for the Giants, Svartalfheim for the Dark Elves, Nidavellir for the Dwarves, Muspelheim as the realm of fire, and Helheim as the land of the dead. Odin, the All-Father, ruled as king of the gods, while constantly seeking wisdom and knowledge to prepare for Ragnarok, the prophesied end of the world. Known as the god of war, death, wisdom, and poetry, Odin sacrificed his eye for wisdom and hung himself from Yggdrasil for 9 days and nights to discover the runes. He gathered slain warriors in Valhalla, his great hall, preparing them for the final battle against the forces of chaos. Or, Odin's son, served as protector of both gods and humans, wielding the mighty hammer Mjolnir to battle giants and other threats. His strength and courage made him popular among common people, while his adventures provided exciting tales of heroism and monster fighting that reflected the dangerous world ancient Scandinavians inhabited. Frigg, Odin's wife, presided over marriage and motherhood while possessing the gift of prophecy. Her knowledge of fate created dramatic tension in many myths, particularly regarding her son Baldur's prophesied death, which she tried unsuccessfully to prevent. Loki occupied a unique position as both companion to the gods and catalyst for their eventual destruction. Neither fully god nor giant, Loki's trickster nature brought both benefits and disasters to Asgard. His shape-shifting abilities and silver tongue got the gods out of many difficulties, but his eventual betrayal would trigger Ragnarok itself. Baldur represented beauty, purity, and goodness, beloved by all beings except Loki. His death, orchestrated by Loki's jealousy and manipulation, marked the beginning of the events leading to Ragnarok. The myth of Baldur's death and the failed attempt to bring him back from Helheim illustrates Norse themes about the inevitability of fate and the tragic nature of existence. Freya, the most prominent goddess of the Vanir, governed love, beauty, fertility, and war. She received half of the slain warriors, taking them to her hall Folkvangr, while Odin received the other half in Valhalla. Her prominence reflected the importance of both love and war in Norse society. Tyr, the one-handed god of war and justice, sacrificed his hand to bind the monstrous wolf Fenrir, demonstrating the Norse ideal of self-sacrifice for the greater good. His willingness to lose his hand, knowing it was necessary for everyone's safety, exemplified the honor code that governed Norse society. The concept of fate, or word, permeated Norse mythology more than perhaps any other mythology. The 3 Norns, past, present, and future, wove the fates of gods and mortals alike, making destiny inescapable even for the most powerful beings. This fatalistic worldview shaped Norse attitudes toward life, death, and heroism. Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, represented both ending and beginning. This prophesied final battle would destroy the current world order, killing most gods and devastating the earth. However, from this destruction would emerge a renewed world where surviving gods and a new generation of humans would create a better existence. Norse religious practices centered on honor, courage, and loyalty to one's family and community. Warriors sought glorious deaths in battle to earn places in Valhalla, while farmers and craftspeople honored gods through seasonal festivals and offerings. The religion emphasized action over contemplation, bravery over safety, and loyalty over personal gain. The mythology reflected the harsh realities of Scandinavian life: long winters, dangerous seas, constant warfare, and the struggle for survival in a challenging environment. Gods faced the same struggles as mortals, experiencing loss, betrayal, and eventual death, making them more relatable than the immortal deities of other pantheons. Norse influence spread throughout medieval Europe through Viking expansion, trade, and settlement. Elements of Norse mythology merged with local traditions in Britain, Ireland, France, and Eastern Europe, while Scandinavian settlers carried their beliefs to Iceland, Greenland, and even North America. The mythology experienced a revival during the Romantic period and continues influencing modern culture through works like Wagner's Ring Cycle, Marvel's Thor comics and films, and numerous fantasy novels and video games. The Norse emphasis on heroism, honor, and facing inevitable doom with courage resonates with contemporary audiences facing their own uncertainties and challenges. Celtic spirituality emerged from the ancient Celtic peoples who inhabited much of Europe before Roman expansion. This nature-based belief system centered around the profound connection between humans and the natural world, viewing all of creation as interconnected and sacred. The Druids served as the spiritual leaders, priests, and scholars of Celtic society. These learned individuals underwent decades of training, memorizing vast amounts of oral tradition, law, poetry, and spiritual knowledge. Druids acted as intermediaries between the human and divine realms, conducting rituals, offering guidance, and preserving cultural wisdom. They were respected as healers, judges, and teachers, holding significant influence in their communities. Sacred groves held particular importance in Celtic spirituality. These natural temples, often centered around ancient oak trees, served as places of worship, ritual, and communion with the divine. Celts believed that spirits inhabited these groves, making them powerful centers of spiritual energy. Rivers, springs, mountains, and stone circles were equally revered as sacred spaces where the veil between worlds was thin. The Celtic worldview embraced the concept of multiple realms existing alongside our physical world. The other world, a mystical realm of spirits and deities, could be accessed through certain locations and times, particularly during seasonal festivals. The Celts celebrated 8 major festivals throughout the year, marking the cycles of nature and agricultural seasons. Samhain, Imbolc, Beltane, and Lugnasad represented the cross-quarter days, while the solstices and equinoxes marked the sun's journey. Spirits played a central role in daily Celtic life. Nature spirits inhabited every aspect of the landscape, from household hearth spirits to powerful deities associated with rivers, mountains, and forests. The Celts practiced ancestor veneration, believing that the deceased continued to influence and guide the living. This created a continuous connection between past, present, and future generations. Celtic spirituality emphasized personal relationship with the divine through direct experience in nature. Practitioners sought wisdom through meditation in natural settings, dream work, and ritual practices that honored the seasons and natural cycles. The tradition valued poetry, storytelling, and music as sacred arts that could convey spiritual truths and connect practitioners to their ancestral heritage. Modern Celtic spirituality has experienced a revival, drawing from historical sources while adapting to contemporary needs. Practitioners today often incorporate elements like meditation in natural settings, seasonal celebrations, herbalism, and earth-based rituals. The tradition continues to emphasize harmony with nature, respect for ancient wisdom, and the understanding that spirituality is woven throughout all aspects of life, rather than separated into distinct religious practices. Slavic paganism. Slavic paganism encompassed the pre-Christian religious traditions of the Slavic peoples across Eastern Europe, including regions that are now Russia, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Ukraine, Belarus, and the Balkans. These diverse but related traditions shared common themes of nature worship, ancestor reverence, and complex mythological systems that explained the workings of the natural and supernatural worlds. The Slavic pantheon included numerous deities associated with different aspects of life and nature. Perun, the thunder god, ruled as the supreme deity in many Slavic traditions, wielding lightning and governing justice and warfare. Veles served as the god of earth, water, and the underworld, often depicted as Perun's adversary in cosmic battles that brought seasonal change. Mokush represented the Earth Mother, fertility, and women's work, particularly spinning and weaving. Rod and Rozhanitsy governed fate and family lineage, while Svarog ruled fire and metalworking. Nature held sacred significance in Slavic paganism, with every aspect of the landscape believed to house spiritual beings. Forest spirits like the Leshy protected woodlands and could help or hinder travelers depending on their intentions and behavior. Water spirits such as Rusalka inhabited rivers and lakes, while household spirits like the Domovoi protected family homes and property. These spirits required regular acknowledgement through offerings and respectful behavior to maintain harmony between human and natural worlds. Ancestor worship formed a cornerstone of Slavic spiritual practice. The deceased were believed to continue existing in the spiritual realm, maintaining active relationships with their living descendants. Families honored ancestors through regular rituals, offerings of food and drink, and consultation during important decisions. Ancestral spirits were thought to provide protection, guidance, and blessings to their families, while neglect could result in misfortune or supernatural disturbances. Seasonal festivals marked important transitions throughout the year, aligning human activities with natural cycles. Kupala Night celebrated the summer solstice with bonfires, water rituals, and herb gathering for magical and medicinal purposes. Kolyada marked the winter solstice with community feasting and ritual performances that encouraged the sun's return. Spring festivals honored fertility and renewal, while autumn celebrations gave thanks for harvest abundance. Slavic pagans practiced divination through various methods, including reading signs in nature, casting lots, and interpreting dreams. Shamanic practices allowed spiritual specialists to journey between worlds, communicate with spirits, and perform healing rituals. Sacred groves, springs, and stones served as ritual sites where communities gathered for worship and important ceremonies. Modern Slavic paganism has experienced revival movements across Eastern Europe and diaspora communities worldwide. Contemporary practitioners work to reconstruct ancient practices through historical research, archaeological evidence, and folklore preservation. They emphasize connection to ancestral lands, seasonal celebrations, and maintaining relationships with nature spirits and ancestors. These modern traditions often blend reconstructed ancient practices with contemporary spiritual needs, creating living traditions that honor the past while serving present-day practitioners. Native American beliefs. Native American spiritual traditions encompass hundreds of distinct tribal cultures across North, Central, and South America, each with unique practices, beliefs, and ceremonial traditions developed over thousands of years. Despite this diversity, many Native American spiritualities share common themes, including deep connection to the land, reverence for all living beings, and understanding of the interconnectedness of all existence. The relationship with land forms the foundation of most Native American spiritual systems. Land is not viewed as property to be owned, but as a living entity deserving respect and care. Sacred sites, including mountains, rivers, burial grounds, and ceremonial locations, hold spiritual significance and serve as places of power where communities connect with ancestral spirits and divine forces. Many tribes trace their origins to specific geographical locations, creating profound spiritual bonds with particular landscapes. Spirits inhabit every aspect of the natural world in Native American belief systems. Animal spirits serve as teachers, guides, and sources of power, each species offering unique wisdom and qualities. Plant spirits provide healing, sustenance, and spiritual guidance, with many tribes maintaining extensive knowledge of medicinal and ceremonial plant uses. Weather spirits, geological spirits, and celestial spirits all play roles in tribal cosmologies and daily spiritual practices. The concept of harmony underlies many Native American spiritual traditions. This harmony extends to relationships between individuals, communities, nature, and the spirit world. Maintaining balance requires ongoing attention to reciprocal relationships, where humans give back to the natural world through ceremonies, offerings, and respectful behavior. When harmony is disrupted through illness, conflict, or spiritual imbalance, healing ceremonies work to restore proper relationships and energy flow. Ceremonial practices vary widely among tribes, but often include elements like drumming, singing, dancing, and the use of sacred plants. Sweat lodge ceremonies provide purification and spiritual renewal. Vision quests offer individuals opportunities for direct spiritual experience and guidance. Seasonal ceremonies mark important transitions and maintain community connection to natural cycles. Healing ceremonies address physical, emotional, and spiritual ailments through various traditional methods. Elders hold special significance in Native American communities as keepers of traditional knowledge, spiritual wisdom, and cultural practices. They serve as teachers, advisors, and links to ancestral traditions. Many tribes emphasize the importance of oral tradition, passing down stories, ceremonies, and spiritual knowledge through generations of careful teaching and learning. The medicine wheel concept, found in various forms across many tribes, represents the cyclical nature of life, the four directions, and the interconnection of all existence. Each direction carries specific meanings, colors, animals, and spiritual qualities that guide understanding of life's journey and spiritual development. Contemporary Native American spirituality faces challenges including historical suppression, cultural loss, and ongoing struggles for religious freedom and protection of sacred sites. However, many tribes work actively to preserve and revitalize traditional practices while adapting to modern circumstances. Pan-Indian movements have also emerged, creating intertribal spiritual practices that honor common themes while respecting tribal differences. These efforts ensure that Native American spiritual traditions continue to thrive and offer guidance for future generations. Aboriginal Dreamtime, Australia. Aboriginal Dreamtime represents one of the world's oldest continuous spiritual traditions, maintained by Indigenous Australian peoples for over 60,000 years. This complex belief system encompasses creation stories, spiritual practices, and a unique understanding of time and reality that differs fundamentally from Western linear concepts of past, present, and future. The Dreamtime, known by various names across different Aboriginal groups, describes both the creation period when ancestral spirits shaped the land and an ongoing spiritual dimension that remains accessible today. During the creation period, powerful ancestral beings traveled across the landscape, forming mountains, rivers, rocks, plants, animals, and the first people. These creation journeys left spiritual energy embedded in the land, creating sacred sites and establishing the laws and customs that continue to guide Aboriginal life. Creation stories vary among the hundreds of different Aboriginal groups, but all describe how ancestral spirits gave form to the previously formless land. The rainbow serpent features prominently in many creation accounts, carving rivers and valleys while bringing water and life to the continent. Other important creator beings include the Lightning Man, Biame, the Sky Father, and various animal ancestors who established the characteristics and behaviors of different species. The landscape itself serves as a living spiritual text in Aboriginal belief. Every geographical feature holds significance as the result of ancestral activity, creating a sacred geography that encompasses the entire continent. Sacred sites mark locations where important creation events occurred, where ancestors entered the earth, or where spiritual energy remains particularly strong. These sites require careful protection and appropriate ceremonial attention to maintain their spiritual potency. Songlines, also known as dreaming tracks, trace the paths taken by ancestral beings during creation. These invisible pathways crisscross the continent, linking sacred sites and maintaining the spiritual connection between different locations. Aboriginal people learn portions of these songlines through initiation and ceremony, gaining both spiritual knowledge and practical navigation skills. Singing the land keeps these spiritual pathways active and maintains the connection between people and country. Spiritual practices in Aboriginal tradition focus on maintaining relationship with the dream time through ceremony, art, and daily observance. Dreamtime stories are shared through various means including painting, dance, song, and oral storytelling. Rock art galleries throughout Australia display Dreamtime stories and spiritual teachings, some dating back tens of thousands of years. Body painting and ground sculptures create temporary sacred art for ceremonial purposes. The Aboriginal concept of time differs significantly from linear Western understanding. The dream time is not simply the past, but an eternal present that remains accessible through proper spiritual practice. Ancestral beings continue to exist in the landscape, available for communication and guidance. This creates a cyclical understanding of time where past, present, and future interpenetrate rather than follow sequential order. Initiation ceremonies mark important transitions in Aboriginal spiritual life, gradually revealing deeper levels of dreamtime knowledge and spiritual responsibility. These ceremonies often involve journeys to sacred sites, learning sacred songs and stories, and taking on new responsibilities for maintaining cultural and spiritual traditions. Contemporary Aboriginal spirituality faces significant challenges due to colonization, land dispossession, and cultural suppression. However, many Aboriginal communities work actively to maintain their spiritual connections through land rights movements, cultural revival programs, and the continuation of traditional ceremonies. Recognition of Aboriginal sacred sites and the incorporation of traditional knowledge into land management practices represent important steps toward preserving these ancient spiritual traditions for future generations. African traditional religions. African traditional religions encompass thousands of distinct spiritual systems practiced across the African continent, each adapted to specific cultural, geographical, and historical contexts. Despite this enormous diversity, Many African religious traditions share common elements, including animistic worldviews, ancestor veneration, community-centered practices, and holistic approaches to spirituality that integrate all aspects of daily life. Animism forms the foundation of most African traditional religions, recognizing that spiritual essence or consciousness exists throughout the natural world. This spiritual presence inhabits not only living beings like humans, animals, and plants, but also geographical features, weather phenomena, and crafted objects. Rivers possess spirits that must be respected and honored. Mountains serve as dwelling places for powerful spiritual entities. Even tools, weapons, and household items can house spiritual essence, particularly those with special significance or history. Ancestor worship represents another central element of African spiritual traditions. The deceased do not simply disappear, but continue existing in the spiritual realm, maintaining active relationships with their living descendants. Ancestors serve as intermediaries between the living and the divine, carrying prayers and offerings to higher spiritual powers while providing guidance, protection, and blessings to their families. Proper ancestor veneration requires regular offerings, respectful behavior, and adherence to traditional customs and values. The living dead, as some African traditions describe ancestors, maintain specific roles and responsibilities in family and community life. Recent ancestors, particularly parents and grandparents, receive frequent attention through daily offerings and consultation during important decisions. More distant ancestors may be invoked during major ceremonies or crises. Ancestral displeasure, often resulting from neglect or inappropriate behavior, can cause illness, misfortune, or spiritual disturbance requiring specific rituals to restore proper relationships. Community forms the center of African religious practice, with individual spirituality inseparable from communal well-being. Religious activities typically involve entire communities rather than isolated individual practice. Festivals, ceremonies, and rituals strengthen social bonds while maintaining spiritual connections. Religious leaders, including priests, diviners, and healers, serve community needs rather than pursuing individual spiritual advancement. Divination practices allow communities to communicate with spiritual forces and gain guidance for important decisions. Methods vary widely across different traditions, but often involve reading signs in natural phenomena, interpreting thrown objects, consulting oracular spirits, or entering trance states. Divination helps determine causes of illness or misfortune, choose appropriate times for important activities, and maintain harmony between human communities and spiritual forces. Healing practices in African traditions address physical, emotional, social, and spiritual aspects of illness simultaneously. Traditional healers, often called medicine people or sangomas, undergo extensive training to diagnose and treat various ailments. Healing may involve herbal medicines, ritual cleansing, spiritual counseling, or ceremonies to restore proper relationships between patients and spiritual forces. Mental illness is often understood as spiritual disturbance requiring specific ritual intervention. Ritual practices mark important life transitions and maintain ongoing relationships with spiritual forces. Birth ceremonies welcome new souls into the community and establish spiritual protection. Initiation rites mark the transition from childhood to adulthood, often involving teaching of sacred knowledge and assumption of adult responsibilities. Marriage ceremonies unite not only individuals, but entire families and ancestral lineages. Death rituals ensure proper transition to ancestral status and continued relationship with the living community. Contemporary African traditional religions face challenges from urbanization, globalization, and the influence of Christianity and Islam. However, many practitioners work to maintain traditional practices while adapting to modern circumstances. Some African religious traditions have spread globally through diaspora communities, influencing spiritual movements in the Americas and other regions. Recognition of traditional healing practices and the preservation of sacred sites represent important efforts to maintain these rich spiritual traditions for future generations. Mayan and Aztec religions. The ancient Mayan and Aztec civilizations developed sophisticated religious systems that were deeply intertwined with their understanding of time, nature, and the cosmos. These ritual-based religions viewed the universe as operating in endless cycles, where creation and destruction occurred repeatedly throughout history. Mayan religion centered around a complex pantheon of deities who controlled different aspects of life and nature. The god Itzama ruled as the supreme creator deity, while Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, governed wind and rain. The Mayans believed in multiple levels of existence, including 13 heavens and 9 underworlds. Their religious practices involved elaborate ceremonies, bloodletting rituals, and human sacrifice to maintain cosmic balance and ensure the continuation of life cycles. Aztec religion was equally complex, featuring hundreds of deities organized in a hierarchical system. Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror, represented conflict and change, while Quetzalcoatl, another feathered serpent deity, symbolized wisdom and life. The Aztecs believed they lived in the fifth sun, the current era of creation, which would eventually end in destruction, like the 4 previous worlds. Both cultures practiced ritual human sacrifice, viewing it as necessary to nourish the gods and maintain universal order. They built massive temple complexes where priests performed daily ceremonies, including offerings of food, flowers, incense, and blood. Religious festivals marked important agricultural and astronomical events, with the calendar serving as both a practical tool and sacred guide. These religions emphasized the interconnectedness of all things and humanity's responsibility to maintain cosmic harmony through proper ritual observance. The priest class held significant power, serving as intermediaries between the human and divine realms while preserving complex astronomical and mathematical knowledge. Zoroastrianism stands as one of the world's oldest monotheistic religions, founded by the prophet Zoroaster, also known as Zarathustra. In ancient Persia, around the 6th century before the Common Era, this influential faith introduced revolutionary concepts that would later appear in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The central deity in Zoroastrianism is Ahura Mazda, whose name means wise lord. Ahura Mazda represents absolute goodness, truth, and light. The religion's core principle revolves around the cosmic struggle between good and evil, light and darkness, truth and falsehood. This dualistic worldview presents Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit, as the opposing force to Ahura Mazda's creative power. Zoroastrian theology teaches that humans possess free will and must choose between good and evil throughout their lives. The religion emphasizes 3 fundamental principles: good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Followers believe that their choices determine their fate in the afterlife, where souls face judgment based on their earthly actions. Fire plays a central role in Zoroastrian worship, symbolizing divine light and purity. Zoroastrians maintain sacred fires in their temples and consider fire, along with water, earth, and air, as pure elements that must be protected from contamination. This reverence for natural elements reflects the religion's emphasis on environmental stewardship. The faith introduced several concepts that became fundamental to later monotheistic religions, including the resurrection of the dead, final judgment, heaven and hell, and the coming of a savior figure called the Saoshyant. Zoroastrians believe in the eventual triumph of good over evil and the renovation of the world. Today, Zoroastrianism is practiced by small communities worldwide, with the largest populations in India, where they are known as Parsis, and Iran. Despite their small numbers, Zoroastrians have made significant contributions to business, science, and philanthropy, particularly in India. Agnosticism. Agnosticism represents a philosophical position regarding the existence of deities and ultimate metaphysical questions. The term was coined by British biologist Thomas Huxley in 1869, derived from the Greek word agnostos, meaning unknown or unknowable. Agnostics maintain that the existence or non-existence of God or gods cannot be known or proven through human reason, experience, or scientific investigation. This position differs from both theism, which affirms the existence of deities, and atheism, which denies or lacks belief in deities. Instead, agnostics suspend judgment on these ultimate questions, arguing that the nature of divine reality, if it exists, lies beyond human comprehension. There are several types of agnosticism. Strong agnosticism, also called hard agnosticism, claims that the existence of deities is fundamentally unknowable and will always remain beyond human understanding. Weak agnosticism, or soft agnosticism, suggests that while we currently lack sufficient evidence to determine whether gods exist, such knowledge might be attainable in the future. Agnostic theists believe in God, but acknowledge that God's existence cannot be proven or known with certainty. Agnostic atheists, conversely, lack belief in gods, while maintaining that divine existence cannot be definitively disproven. This nuanced spectrum demonstrates that agnosticism can coexist with various degrees of belief or disbelief. Many agnostics emphasize intellectual humility, arguing that humans should acknowledge the limits of their knowledge, rather than making absolute claims about ultimate reality. They often focus on practical ethics and human experience rather than metaphysical speculation. Critics of agnosticism argue that it represents intellectual fence-sitting or an evasion of important philosophical questions. Supporters counter that agnosticism reflects honest intellectual assessment of the available evidence and the limitations of human knowledge. They argue that acknowledging uncertainty about ultimate questions can lead to greater tolerance and open-mindedness in discussions about religion and spirituality. Atheism. Atheism encompasses the absence of belief in gods or supernatural forces, representing one of humanity's oldest philosophical positions. The word derives from the Greek atheos, meaning without gods. Atheism exists in various forms, from simple lack of belief to active denial of divine existence. Weak atheism, also called negative atheism, simply lacks belief in gods without making positive claims about their non-existence. This position requires no proof, as it merely represents the absence of theistic belief. Strong atheism, or positive atheism, actively asserts that gods do not exist, taking a definitive stance that typically requires supporting arguments and evidence. Historical atheism faced significant persecution, as many societies considered religious belief essential for moral order and social stability. Ancient Greek philosophers like Democritus and Epicurus developed naturalistic explanations for natural phenomena, challenging supernatural explanations. During the Enlightenment, philosophers such as David Hume and Voltaire questioned religious authority and promoted rational skepticism. Modern atheism often draws support from scientific discoveries that provide natural explanations for phenomena once attributed to divine intervention. Evolutionary biology, cosmology, and neuroscience have offered alternative accounts of life's origins, the universe's formation, and consciousness without requiring supernatural causes. Atheists frequently emphasize reason, evidence, and scientific methodology as the most reliable tools for understanding reality. They argue that extraordinary claims, including those about divine beings, require extraordinary evidence. Many atheists advocate for secular approaches to ethics, deriving moral principles from human well-being, social cooperation, and rational consideration rather than religious authority. Contemporary atheism includes various subcategories and related movements. New atheism, promoted by figures like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, takes a more confrontational approach to religious belief, viewing it as potentially harmful to society. Secular humanism combines atheistic beliefs with positive ethical frameworks focused on human dignity and progress. Atheists often face misconceptions, including assumptions about moral nihilism or spiritual emptiness. Many atheists maintain rich philosophical lives, finding meaning through relationships, creative expression, scientific discovery, and ethical action without requiring supernatural beliefs. Humanism. Humanism represents an ethical and philosophical approach that emphasizes human dignity, worth, and agency, while promoting reason, compassion, and justice as guiding principles for human behavior. This worldview places humans at the center of moral consideration, arguing that people can live meaningful, ethical lives without relying on supernatural beliefs or religious authority. Renaissance humanism emerged in 14th century Europe, emphasizing classical learning, individual potential, and human achievements. Thinkers like Pico della Mirandola celebrated human dignity and capacity for self-improvement, while scholars like Erasmus promoted education and critical thinking. This intellectual movement helped spark the scientific revolution and Enlightenment. Modern secular humanism developed during the Enlightenment and has continued evolving through contemporary times. It maintains that humans can understand the world through reason and scientific inquiry, while developing ethical systems based on human experience and well-being rather than divine command. Humanists typically embrace naturalistic explanations for natural phenomena and reject supernatural claims. Humanist ethics focus on reducing suffering and promoting human flourishing. They emphasize individual rights, social justice, and equality, while recognizing the interconnectedness of human communities. Humanists often advocate for democratic governance, civil liberties, and separation of church and state, arguing that these principles best serve human dignity and freedom. The humanist approach to meaning-making emphasizes personal responsibility and self-determination. Rather than seeking purpose through divine plans or eternal rewards, humanists find meaning through relationships, creative expression, intellectual growth, and contributions to human welfare. They often view death as natural and final, making earthly life more precious and urgent. Humanist organizations worldwide promote education, scientific literacy, and social reform. They support reproductive rights, environmental protection, and human rights while opposing discrimination and authoritarianism. Many humanists engage in charitable work and social activism, applying their values to practical problems. Religious humanism exists alongside secular humanism, with some religious traditions incorporating humanistic values while maintaining spiritual beliefs. These approaches share concerns for human welfare and dignity, while differing on questions of divine existence and supernatural claims. Contemporary humanism faces challenges from both religious fundamentalism and postmodern skepticism about universal human values, yet continues attracting people seeking rational, compassionate approaches to ethical living. Stoicism emerged in ancient Greece around 300 BCE and became one of the most influential philosophical schools in the Western world. Founded by Zeno of Citium, this philosophy teaches that the path to happiness lies not in avoiding life's difficulties, but in how we respond to them. The core principle of Stoicism is the dichotomy of control. Stoics believe we should focus our energy only on what we can actually control, our thoughts, judgments, and actions. Everything else, including other people's behavior, natural disasters, illness, and death, lies outside our control. By accepting this fundamental truth, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering caused by trying to control the uncontrollable. Stoics practice four cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Wisdom involves understanding what is truly good and bad. Justice means treating others fairly and fulfilling our social duties. Courage isn't just physical bravery, but the strength to do what's right even when it's difficult. Temperance is self-control and moderation in all things. The philosophy emphasizes emotional resilience through rational thinking. When faced with adversity, Stoics examine their initial emotional reactions and challenge irrational thoughts. They practice negative visualization, imagining loss or hardship to appreciate what they have and prepare mentally for life's inevitable challenges. Famous Stoic philosophers include Epictetus, a former slave who taught that no one can hurt you without your permission, and Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor whose personal journal became the classic text, Meditations. Seneca, a Roman statesman, wrote extensively about applying Stoic principles to daily life. Modern applications of Stoicism appear in cognitive behavioral therapy and resilience training. The philosophy offers practical tools for managing stress, anxiety, and disappointment. Stoics practice morning and evening reflections, examining their thoughts and actions to continuously improve their character. Existentialism. Existentialism emerged in the 19th and 20th centuries as a philosophical response to the apparent meaninglessness of human existence. This movement argues that existence precedes essence, meaning we exist first and then create our own purpose and meaning through our choices and actions. The philosophy confronts what existentialists call the absurd, the conflict between our desire for meaning and the universe's apparent indifference to human concerns. Rather than despair, existentialists see this as liberating. Since there's no predetermined purpose or divine plan dictating our lives, we're completely free to choose who we become. This radical freedom comes with what Soren Kierkegaard called anxiety or dread. When we truly understand that we're responsible for creating our own meaning, it can feel overwhelming. Jean-Paul Sartre famously wrote that we're condemned to be free, because even refusing to choose is itself a choice. Existentialists emphasize authenticity, living according to your own values rather than conforming to external expectations. This requires constant self-examination and the courage to make difficult decisions that align with your true self, even when society disapproves. The concept of bad faith describes how people deceive themselves to avoid the responsibility of freedom. Examples include claiming "I had no choice" when alternatives existed, or defining yourself entirely by your social roles to avoid confronting deeper questions about identity and purpose. Key figures include Kierkegaard, often considered the father of existentialism, who explored themes of individual choice and religious faith. Friedrich Nietzsche proclaimed God is dead, meaning traditional sources of meaning had lost their authority. Sartre developed atheistic existentialism, while others like Gabriel Marcel explored Christian existentialism. Existentialism profoundly influenced literature, psychology, and popular culture. Writers like Albert Camus explored themes of absurdity and rebellion against meaninglessness. The philosophy encourages personal responsibility, authentic living, and the creation of individual meaning in an uncertain world. Transcendentalism. Transcendentalism was a 19th century American philosophical and literary movement that emerged in New England as a reaction against both Puritan orthodoxy and Enlightenment rationalism. Led by figures like Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, this movement emphasized the inherent goodness of both people and nature. The core belief of transcendentalism is that individuals can transcend the physical world to reach higher spiritual truths through intuition rather than logic or religious doctrine. Transcendentalists believed that everyone possesses an inner light or divine spark that connects them directly to universal truth, making organized religion and its intermediaries unnecessary. Nature holds central importance in transcendentalist thought. They viewed the natural world as a source of spiritual insight and moral guidance. Thoreau's experiment at Walden Pond exemplified this belief, as he sought to live simply in nature to better understand himself and life's essential truths. His famous work, Walden, chronicles how natural observation led to profound philosophical insights about society, materialism, and authentic living. Self-reliance stands as another fundamental principle. Emerson's essay, Self-Reliance, argues that individuals should trust their own intuition and judgment rather than conforming to social expectations or accepting others' opinions. This doesn't mean selfishness, but rather the courage to follow your inner voice and contribute your unique gifts to society. Transcendentalists champion social reform, viewing individual spiritual development as inseparable from social justice. They opposed slavery, supported women's rights, and advocated for educational reform. Thoreau's night in jail for refusing to pay taxes that supported the Mexican-American War, which he saw as expanding slavery, demonstrated his belief in civil disobedience as a moral duty. The movement emphasized the dignity of manual labor and simple living as paths to spiritual fulfillment. They criticized materialism and the growing industrialization of American society, arguing that the pursuit of wealth often corrupted the soul and distanced people from nature and their true selves. Transcendentalism influenced American literature, education, and social movements. Its emphasis on individual conscience over social conformity contributed to movements for abolition, women's rights, and environmental conservation. The philosophy continues to resonate in modern movements, emphasizing personal growth, environmental awareness, and social justice. Spiritual but not religious, SBNR. The spiritual but not religious movement represents a growing demographic of people who maintain spiritual beliefs and practices while rejecting organized religion. This approach typically involves belief in something greater than oneself, whether called God, the universe, higher power, or divine energy, but without adherence to specific religious doctrines or institutional structures. SBNR individuals often describe feeling spiritually connected while finding traditional religions too restrictive, dogmatic, or irrelevant to their personal experience. They may have grown up in religious households, but later felt constrained by rigid rules, judgmental attitudes, or theological conflicts with their personal beliefs and values. This spiritual path emphasizes personal experience over prescribed doctrine. SBNR practitioners often engage in meditation, prayer, yoga, nature worship, or other practices that help them feel connected to the sacred. They may draw from multiple religious traditions, taking what resonates while leaving what doesn't fit their understanding. Many SBNR individuals believe in concepts like interconnectedness, the power of intention, karma, or universal energy. They often view spirituality as a personal journey of growth and self-discovery, rather than adherence to external authority. This approach allows for flexibility in beliefs as one grows and changes throughout life. The movement reflects broader cultural trends toward individualism and skepticism of institutions. Many people appreciate the community and moral guidance that religion can provide, but struggle with aspects like exclusive truth claims, historical injustices committed by religious institutions, or conflicts between religious teachings and scientific understanding. SBNR spirituality often emphasizes practical benefits like inner peace, personal growth, and ethical living rather than salvation or afterlife concerns. Practitioners frequently focus on mindfulness, gratitude, compassion, and finding meaning in everyday experiences. Critics argue that SBNR approaches can become self-centered or lack the accountability and wisdom that come from community and tradition. Supporters counter that this path allows for authentic spiritual exploration without the baggage of institutional religion. The SBNR movement has grown significantly in recent decades, particularly among younger generations. It reflects changing attitudes toward authority, community, and the role of spirituality in modern life, emphasizing personal authenticity over conformity to traditional religious expectations. Deism emerged during the Enlightenment as a rational approach to understanding God and religion. Deists believe in a supreme being who created the universe, but then withdrew from active involvement in human affairs. This creator established natural laws that govern the cosmos, but doesn't intervene through miracles, answer prayers, or communicate through prophets or scriptures. The deist God is often compared to a clockmaker who built a perfect timepiece, wound it up, and then let it run according to its internal mechanisms. This metaphor captures the deist belief that the universe operates through discoverable natural laws, rather than divine intervention or supernatural occurrences. Reason serves as the primary tool for understanding both God and morality in deist thought. Rather than relying on revelation through holy books or religious authorities, deists believe human reason can discern moral truths and evidence of divine design in nature. They often point to the complexity and order of the natural world as evidence of an intelligent creator. Many of America's founding fathers, including Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and possibly George Washington, held deist beliefs. Jefferson even created his own version of the Bible, removing supernatural elements while preserving Jesus' moral teachings. This rational approach to religion influenced the founding principles of religious freedom and separation of church and state. Deism arose partly as a response to religious conflicts and the perceived irrationality of traditional Christianity. Deists rejected mysteries like the Trinity, virgin birth, and resurrection as contrary to reason. They often viewed Jesus as a moral teacher rather than a divine savior, and questioned the reliability of biblical accounts written long after the events they describe. The deist concept of natural religion suggests that moral truths are accessible to all people through reason and observation of nature, regardless of their cultural or religious background. This universalist approach contrasts with religions claiming exclusive access to divine truth through specific revelations or chosen peoples. Deists typically believe in an afterlife where people are judged based on their moral conduct rather than their religious beliefs or participation in sacraments. This emphasis on ethics over theology reflects the Enlightenment focus on practical morality rather than abstract theological speculation. Modern deism continues to attract people who find traditional theism too anthropomorphic or interventionist while maintaining belief in a creator. Some combine deist beliefs with scientific understanding, seeing the Big Bang or evolution as the mechanisms through which the deist God created and shaped the universe according to natural laws. Baha'i faith. The Baha'i faith, pronounced Baha'i, emerged in 19th century Persia and represents one of the world's youngest major religions. Founded by Baha'u'llah, whose name means glory of God, this faith centers on the fundamental unity of all humanity and religions. Baha'is believe that God has revealed divine truth progressively through various messengers throughout history, including Abraham, Moses, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, and Baha'u'llah himself. The core principle of unity manifests in three essential dimensions. First, the unity of God emphasizes that there is one supreme being worshipped by all religions, though understood differently across cultures. Second, the unity of religion teaches that all major faiths share common spiritual truths and represent stages in humanity's spiritual evolution. Third, the unity of humanity proclaims that all people, regardless of race, nationality, or background, belong to one human family. Baha'i communities practice devotional gatherings, study circles, and children's classes that emphasize moral education and spiritual development. They advocate for world peace, universal education, gender equality, and the elimination of prejudice. The religion has no clergy. Instead, elected assemblies guide community affairs. Baha'is observe a 19-day fast, celebrate 19 holy days annually, and gather for communal worship that incorporates prayers and readings from various religious traditions. The faith's administrative center is located in Haifa, Israel, where the stunning Baha'i Gardens cascade down Mount Carmel. With over 5 million followers worldwide, the Baha'i faith emphasizes service to humanity and working toward a unified global civilization based on justice and peace. Unitarian Universalism. Unitarian Universalism, often abbreviated as UU, represents a liberal religious movement that emerged from the merger of two Christian traditions in 1961. However, modern UU has evolved far beyond its Christian roots to embrace a truly inclusive spiritual philosophy that draws wisdom from multiple religious and philosophical traditions. The movement's name reflects its historical origins. Unitarianism rejected the Christian doctrine of the Trinity, affirming God's unity rather than the three-person concept of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Universalism taught that all souls would eventually be saved, opposing the traditional Christian belief in eternal damnation for some people. Contemporary Unitarian Universalism is guided by 7 principles rather than fixed creeds or dogmas. These principles affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, free and responsible search for truth, democratic processes, world community with peace and justice, and respect for the web of all existence. UU congregations are remarkably diverse, welcoming Christians, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, pagans, humanists, and atheists. Members are encouraged to draw from 6 sources of spiritual insight: personal experience, prophetic words and deeds, wisdom from world religions, Jewish and Christian teachings, humanist teachings, and spiritual teachings from earth-centered traditions. Worship services vary significantly between congregations, but typically include readings from diverse traditions, music, meditation, and sermons that explore ethical and spiritual themes. Many UU communities actively engage in social justice work, environmental activism, and interfaith dialogue. The denomination strongly supports LGBTQ+ rights, racial justice, and progressive political causes, viewing social action as integral to spiritual practice. Raelism, founded by Claude Vorilhon, now known as Rael, in 1974, presents a unique blend of science fiction concepts and spiritual teachings. This movement claims that life on Earth was created by extraterrestrial beings called the Elohim, a Hebrew word traditionally translated as God, but interpreted by Raelians as those who came from the sky. According to Raelian beliefs, the Elohim are advanced scientists from another planet who created all life on Earth through genetic engineering approximately 25,000 years ago. Rael claims he was contacted by these beings in 1973 and chosen as their final messenger to humanity. The movement reinterprets religious texts, particularly the Bible, as accounts of extraterrestrial intervention rather than supernatural events. Raelians embrace what they call scientific spirituality, rejecting traditional concepts of God, soul, and afterlife, while maintaining that consciousness can potentially be preserved through advanced technology. They believe the Elohim will return to Earth when humanity achieves sufficient scientific and social progress, bringing with them the technology for human cloning and immortality. The movement promotes several controversial practices and beliefs. They advocate for sexual liberation, viewing pleasure as divinely intended, and have established angels, members who dedicate themselves to welcoming the Elohim's return. Raelians support human cloning, genetic modification, and other advanced biotechnologies as steps toward human enhancement and eternal life. Raelian practices include meditation techniques called sensual meditation, which focuses on heightening awareness and pleasure. They observe several festivals throughout the year, including celebrations of Rael's alleged encounters with extraterrestrials. The movement claims tens of thousands of members worldwide, though exact numbers are disputed. Critics often classify Raelism as a UFO religion or new religious movement, questioning its scientific claims and expressing concern about its authoritarian structure and controversial practices involving sexuality and cloning. Scientology, founded by science fiction writer L. Ron Hubbard in 1954, presents itself as both a religion and a system of psychological therapy. The movement emerged from Hubbard's earlier work called Dianetics, which claimed to offer a scientific approach to mental health through a process called auditing. Central to Scientology doctrine is the belief that humans are immortal spiritual beings called Thetans, who have lived countless past lives across the universe. According to Hubbard's teachings, Thetans became trapped in physical bodies and accumulated engrams, traumatic memories that cause psychological and physical problems. The goal of Scientology is to help individuals become clear, meaning free from these harmful engrams, and eventually achieve the state of operating Thetan, where one regains full spiritual abilities. The primary practice in Scientology is auditing, a form of counseling that uses an electronic device called an e-meter to supposedly measure spiritual distress. During auditing sessions, practitioners answer questions about their past experiences, traumas, and thoughts while connected to the e-meter. Scientologists believe this process gradually removes engrams and restores spiritual freedom. Scientology's organizational structure resembles both a church and a business corporation. Members typically pay substantial fees for courses, auditing sessions, and materials as they progress through various levels of training. The organization operates several entities, including the Church of Scientology, the Sea Organization, a committed religious order, and various front groups promoting Scientology principles in education, drug rehabilitation, and human rights. The movement has faced significant controversy and legal challenges in many countries. Critics raise concerns about aggressive recruitment tactics, high financial costs, alleged harassment of former members and critics, and secretive practices. Several governments have refused to recognize Scientology as a legitimate religion, instead classifying it as a commercial enterprise or potentially harmful organization. Despite controversies, Scientology maintains active centers worldwide and claims hundreds of thousands of members, though independent estimates suggest much smaller numbers. Wicca Wicca represents a modern revival of ancient pagan and witchcraft traditions, formally established by Gerald Gardner in England during the 1950s. This contemporary religious movement draws inspiration from pre-Christian European spirituality, while incorporating modern elements and adapting to contemporary values and understanding. Wiccan theology typically centers on the worship of a goddess and god, representing feminine and masculine aspects of divinity. The goddess is often associated with the moon, earth, fertility, and the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. She may be seen as a triple deity encompassing maiden, mother, and crone aspects. The god, frequently called the horned god, represents nature, fertility, the hunt, and the solar cycle. Some Wiccans focus primarily on goddess worship, while others maintain balance between both deities. Nature holds sacred significance in Wiccan practice. Practitioners honor the changing seasons through 8 seasonal festivals called Sabbats, including the solstices, equinoxes, and cross-quarter days like Samhain, Halloween, and Beltane May Day. These celebrations acknowledge the eternal cycle of birth, growth, death, and renewal observed in nature. Wiccan ethics center on the Wiccan Rede, and it harm none, do what you will, meaning practitioners should act freely as long as their actions cause no harm. The threefold law teaches that whatever energy a person puts into the world returns to them magnified 3 times, encouraging responsible use of magical practices. Magic, spelled magic to distinguish it from stage illusion, plays a central role in Wiccan practice. Practitioners perform rituals and cast spells to focus intention and energy toward desired outcomes, such as healing, protection, or personal growth. Common tools include athames, ritual knives, wands, cauldrons, crystals, and herbs. Wiccan practice can be solitary or group-based. Covens, small groups of practitioners, gather for rituals, seasonal celebrations, and mutual support. Many Wiccans also practice alone, adapting traditions to their personal spiritual needs and circumstances. Modern Wicca embraces diversity and personal interpretation, resulting in numerous traditions and approaches within the broader movement.